Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with your host, ajmahari. This podcast will give you an in-depth understanding of borderline personality disorder, whether you have it or a loved one, partner, ex, friend, adult child, or sibling of someone with borderline personality disorder. ajmahari is a counselor and trauma recovery coach who has 30 years experience working with those surviving borderline personality relationship breakups in all relationship types, healing from codependency, inner child healing, family of origin healing and self-differentiation, narcissistic abuse recovery, and much more. Keeping it real to help you heal. You can find this podcast at ajmahari.ca, where you can also purchase and book sessions with ajmahari. Please also subscribe to AJ Mahari's YouTube channel at youtube.com/ajmahari.
The BPD X and the good times in the past after a BPD relationship breakup. Maybe you were ghosted, maybe you were discarded, maybe you broke up with them. Maybe you're not sure if it's really over yet or not. But what you are wondering is, in your pain of maybe being ghosted and not being sure that it's over, or hoping it's not, or maybe you were discarded, or maybe they said it's over, or you did, but it doesn't end there for people. During, immediately after, or even a long time after the BPD relationship breakup, one of the most complicated and painful breakups that people have to work really hard to survive and to heal and to recover from. But even before that, to merely accept, to come to acceptance that it's not going to work out. That in itself can take a lot of processing in a healing and recovery journey. I'm not here to work with you if I resonate with you, right? So here's the thing. Does the borderline X remember, even if that's an X that from 2 weeks or 2 years ago, do they remember the good times? A lot of people are wondering about this in various iterations. I'm still having hope that a relationship might work out, not sure if it's over, trying to recycle many times around with the same person with BPD, encountering the same experience. It's very painful, more injurious every time you go around the cycle. So does the borderline X remember the good times? Not really. Not everybody with BPD is the same, but the answer is no. Not the way that you do. Not the way that you have that congruent object constancy of what you experienced, even if you don't understand that right now. And it's incredibly painful, and you're in a very difficult place. So when people ask if their borderline X remembers the good times, what motivates that for people? Often it's still false hope, it's confusion, it's cognitive dissonance, it's a lot of pain, and yes, it's that unhealthy bond that even if the person with BPD has been gone, however the relationship ended, or like I said, if you're not sure it's really over, or you still have had some contact back and forth, all the different iterations that can happen, well, it's people's false hope, it's people still, often with codependency, can be some other things there, counterdependency going on, but it's people wanting back the person who isn't there right now, or maybe hasn't been around for a long time, or maybe it's more recent. The borderline X, or the borderline that ghosted you 2 weeks ago, or 2 days ago, or earlier this morning, doesn't remember the good times, and is unlikely to really ever recall the good times within the framework within which they unfolded, because of the major split to devaluation that created the relational rupture. And that happens within people with BPD, and often in ways that they are not consciously aware of. So the key thing here is to know that if you're still invested in asking the question, even if the breakup was recent, or you're confused still, that what is, you need now to consider what I'm saying in terms of what you need to hear more than what you want to hear. And it's really hard when you're in a lot of pain. I totally understand that. But your focus on, does my BPDX, or, are they gone, or is it over, what happened, or that it is, but why can't it be on again, and why can't we make this work out? But do they remember the good times? No. Because after the idealization phase, in which you're really not being seen and heard either, the way that it feels like you are so incredibly seen and heard, when the first evaluation, splits of evaluation comes, and there can be micro splits and mini splits of evaluation that aren't going to be the impetus or what is the last straw inside the person with BPD that they're often not consciously aware of, that will cause them to ghost or say it's over, or I'm done, or I can't do this anymore, or say it in a way that blames you for everything. So it's really key to know that this is about false hope. It's about the pain you're in. It's about how confusing everything is. It doesn't make any logical sense. And people need to know this is not your fault. You didn't cause it. So I think a lot of times when people are asking the question, does the borderline X remember the good times? It's really still coming from a place of a lot of pain and a lot more work that you need to do or get into and start doing or continue doing in a healing and recovery process in a formal way. Again, I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, because the question in and of itself speaks to, sometimes for people, also limerence, which is very painful, speaks to the rumination, the cognitive dissonance, the absolute confusion and nightmare of pain that just being ghosted or discarded by somebody is, when often that happens right after you were just really close to them and everything you thought was going really well. But something inside of people with BPD is often churning in ways where they're having anxiety, they're experiencing things differently, and they're not really fully in the here and now, and they often don't express anything. They just take off and leave and ghost. And I'm going to talk more about why is that for people to understand. But the borderline X doesn't remember the good times the way that you do. And even if they say they do, now they're not all the same, but the highest percentage of people with BPD who would split you to devaluation and ghost you, or just jump out of the relationship, or be saying, well, you did this, that, and the other, and I don't want this anymore, which is usually not what you've done, and it's not about you. They really don't remember the good times because of their need to try to keep feeling like they're real. Their existence, they always feel, consciously or unconsciously, is threatened somehow. The abandonment fear engulfs them, and the engulfment of trying to stay with somebody, they feel controlled. All of these things that are going on that are early childhood repetition compulsion cycles of what ruptured in a relationship that caused them to have BPD in the first place, before or by the age of 2, and usually with a caregiver. Overridingly more people than not, tremendously high percentage, and even though do not remember the good times. And people with BPD that might remember something is not going to be very much in, quote, good, positive, unquote, framework. What were good times that you shared might not have been even experienced the same way with the person with BPD by them. Or even if it was, when that split to devaluation happens and you're painted black, then they lose. I mean, it can be compartmentalized and it's tucked away in the subconscious. But they lose the ability to be aware of the good times because they're focused on their misperceptions, the unconscious reality of why they might have just ghosted you, which they probably don't have really clear ideas about what actually happened. But the narrative that they're going to tell themselves, which is based on what's happened in previous relationships when they don't work out, but goes back to that really adverse experience in childhood and that first rupture. and that first split, which happens for people often who will go on to be diagnosed with BPD or show all the patterns of BPD. It happens for them often, this splitting begins in infancy. And so that's a really complicated thing to try to unpack totally, and it's not what I'm here to say today. But what I did want to say is your BPDX is not remembering the good times or thinking about the good times or focused on the good times because they're dichotomous thinkers. And when you're painted black and you've been split to devaluation and the relationship has ended in whichever way it has, or temporarily for right now, and I hate to add that in there because people really need to, if you get ghosted by somebody with BPD, you need to keep the door that they slammed on you closed. Otherwise, it's self-abandonment. It's so painful, but it makes no sense. People need to work on a process of healing and recovery with this. But please know that the answer to the question, does your borderline X remember the good times, is no. Their focus is wholly on everything they experienced that was negative. The negative is their comfort zone. They don't have trust. They lack a sense or stable sense of self. They don't really even have a self, a container of self from which to actually remember emotionally or re-experience or recall emotionally the good times or any positive feelings or even all that you did do for them and how you tried to love them, because they have now devalued you and split in a major way to where they're experiencing you, re-experiencing a wounding parent, and projecting that out onto you, unconsciously more often than not. Because your ex, and you can't come to terms with that in so many different ways emotionally, and you might still hold out this hope, well, surely sooner or later he or she's going to remember the good times, or what about all the love that I showed them? What about all I did for him or her? But that's not really the way that people with BPD work. And so I will explain this more if people want me to. I work with clients to explain this in really clear ways, to unpack it in its entirety of why this is the case with people with BPD, or even if it wasn't an ex, if it was a family member, whatever, and the relationship is ruptured, then they don't know paradox. They can't hold two opposing feelings or thoughts at the same time. So unfortunately, after relationships break up, rupture, whatever the case is, no, they're not thinking about the good times, because their comfort zone is within negativity and pain, unfortunately, unbeknownst to them consciously. And so they will be focused on that experience until maybe they jump to the next person, and not all jump to the next person right away. But if they do, then they'll be involved, totally ensconced in the idealization and mirroring of that next person, and they won't be focused on where they've been before. And these are repetition compulsion cycles coming out of their unconscious, so they're not aware of it and they can't change it. But the answer, if you're still asking yourself this, or you're wondering this, or you're in a world of hurt, and maybe it's just been a 2-week thing, you've been ghosted and you haven't heard from them, do they remember the good times? No, they don't. And what do you need to do for you? You need to get into a healing and recovery process. And even if you are still in contact, even if you still hope to get back to them, back with them, the way that I work with clients, if you resonate with me, I can help you to understand why that is, what that's about, how to unpack that, to really help you work on whether or not that's the way you want to go. Why do you? What are you expecting? What do you think? What framework do you have of understanding what just happened, or what's happened a while ago with the BPDX, or a friend with BPD, or any other relationship type? When you get split to devaluation, it causes a rupture in any relationship type. The borderline is not remembering the good times. And you, as a codependent or counterdependent, people with their own adverse childhood experiences, that's how you get into the relationship with a person with BPD, or the patterns they're in, which happens on an unconscious level for you. You're abandoning yourself. You're in a world of hurt. And mostly it just doesn't make any sense to people. And if you're in that foggy place and all you can do is focus on this person, and whether you're in contact with them or not in contact with them, people with BPD after relationship break, rupture, in any relationship type, do not remember all you gave. It's not that they don't remember, but they're not focused on it. It's a little bit more complicated. I need to go deeper. Maybe we'll see. Point is, no, they're not focused on the good times. No, they're not really having that on their mind in that framework at all. And all that I'm saying here is so very true and applies also to when an ex with BPD or in an on and off again relationship type where there's been a breakup and you keep trying to recycle in the hopes that this will work. When people with BPD hoover you, or you reverse hoover them, and contact is made again, or even if contact is on and off, after a period of silence, people with BPD are not remembering the good times. And they may speak about things in a hoover that might have you really believing that, but remember, you want to hear that more than anything else in the world. So you're really hearing what they're saying. Are they really saying what you're hearing? Are you hearing what you want to hear versus what you need to know, remember, in spite of what you might hear or not? What are you really hearing? Because even when people with BPD hoover back, there's going to be no re-idealization. There is not really going to be a second or third or fifth or 10th or 12th honeymoon phase. And so when they express in hoovers, or however you get back in contact, one way or the other, this is why this is so not advised. When they express what they do, nothing about them has changed. And certainly not if it was 2 weeks ago, a month ago, a year ago. Absolutely nothing has changed. And so they are still not emotionally recalling, re-experiencing, or connected to the good times that you thought they were so connected to when you shared them with them in the first place, because they really weren't connected to them or trusting them then either, which has nothing to do with you. So remember, even in the BPD hoovers, or your reverse hoovers to the ex with BPD, you might think that what is happening, you might feel that what is happening is, oh, they're back, they're remembering your good times again, this is re-idealization, this will work. Or you might be just getting back with them and all excited again because of the relief of the pain without even thinking any of this consciously. But when they hoover, nothing's changed. They'll say everything you want to hear, and it really applies in answering this question. They're not going back to the frame or however they experienced or the emotional remembering of the good times. And often not even intellectual recall of the good times. This is not because they have amnesia. This is not because it's all gone, but it is because it's been disavowed, externalized, usually onto you in the breakup, and they've filed it away in a subconscious place, and they can't retrieve it because they don't have the emotional intelligence. They've lost it in a way, compartmentalized it, repressed it, and disavowed it. So no, they're not able to relive it, to feel it, or to actually, in that emotional sense, remember the good times or the connection. And when they're hoovering, they might make it seem exactly like this is exactly what they're describing to you, and you're going to get back to that place. You never really get back to the place that you started off initially with a person with BPD before you realized that they weren't really who you thought they were, etc. And they really started to struggle with things, and you may have been aware of that or not. So the point is, they just don't have the emotional maturity or the object constancy or the congruency of experience or the experience in the first place of really taking in the good times, the love that you had for them, the positive. It really doesn't go in a deep way, and they don't really attach to you, so they don't remember emotionally. They don't have conscious recall of what they might have thought they experienced, but maybe didn't totally experience as you thought those were the absolute best times. And now the borderline just can't go back to the, quote, good, unquote, while experiencing all the negative and the re-experiencing of pain and unconscious things from childhood, and you have been projected onto as the bad guy, whether male or female, just using that term, because they have to have that bad guy, that split, that bad person to disavow, externalize out the way that they will internally experience in an unconscious manner that they're not really aware of, the rupture, and why they don't feel the same amount of pain as you do, and why often they don't have a longing or a sense of longing or missing someone after the devaluation split the way that you're missing them. And that can be painful to hear, but again, I try to keep it real to help people here heal, because it's really important that you do start to hear what you need to hear versus what, of course, people would rather hear. But these relationships are impossible and they don't work out, and with people with BPD, that is, and they begin, the moment the relationship begins, in a very unconscious set-up way with the unhealthy bond and much more, the relationship begins and it starts to end. And nobody knows that at the beginning. It feels so great. Like, you might think, what the heck are you talking about? Anyway, whatever your situation and circumstance is right now, if you're wondering if a BPDX is remembering the good times with you, they're not. They're not focused on it. It's not their framework. It's not the way they work. It's not the way they protect themselves. If you're focused on that, you are increasing your own pain. You really do need to get some help for that. I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you. And remember that even the question, and really with a lot of feelings behind it while you're in a lot of pain, does my ex, or does that my ex-friend with BPD, or this person that I'm not sure if they're ever coming back, but I want them back with BPD, do they remember the good times? No. And what's happening for you likely is you can't stop thinking about the good times because you're likely ignoring the bad times. And they're focused on something negative that caused them to ghost, discard, or caused a relationship breakup, or you got to a point where you really couldn't hang in there anymore. And it's pain, and it's agony, and it's rumination, and it's cognitive dissonance. And people get stuck usually, initially, and maybe sometimes for a long time, in the cognitive dissonance part of it, with the rumination, etc. People get stuck on focusing, exes of people with BPD get stuck focusing on the good times, without focusing equally on the bad times. Not to sound so dichotomous, but just to put it simply. Whereas people with BPD are going to be focusing on everything that they feel was bad, negative, and not the way they wanted it to be, which isn't your fault, by the way. There was nothing you could do about it. And so they're going to be focused on the negative, and exes are usually focused too much in the cognitive dissonance on the good times. So to the question, does a BPD ex or a person with BPD in any relationship type that was in your life, are they going to be remembering those good times? They're not going to be focused on that because they're focused elsewhere, and their comfort zone is negative. Their comfort zone is painful. And so you have to watch out for your rumination and the cognitive dissonance you're experiencing. Like I said, that you're probably focusing on all the good times, not the bad times. People with BPD are focusing on all what they perceive to be or misperceive to be the bad times and not the good times. It's a really agonizing situation to be working to survive a BPD relationship breakup. But the question, if you're still invested emotionally in this, if you have hope, which is likely false hope at this point, does the borderline X remember the good times? The question is going to increase your pain. The answer is no. And nobody wants to hear that. So you have to think about what kind of false hope do you still have, and are you focusing on only the good times that you wish that they were thinking about, because you're negating all the negative and all the pain they've caused you because you're trying to get out of that pain. So it's really important to reach out and work with someone. Whether you think the relationship can get back on track or not, they don't work out. But some people try many, many times over. So anyway, I'm not here to work with you if I resonate with you. And if you are invested in this question, among other things, or you're freshly out of a relationship, like with a relationship breakup with someone with BPD, or you've been stuck for a while, then this question might really resonate with you, as maybe you have many other questions, because they're designed to keep protecting you from the agony that you're in, that you need to work and process to heal, working with someone. If you stay invested in what really feels like it might be hope, it might be need, but it's false hope, unfortunately it's increasing your pain, and it's going to keep you blocked and stuck, and you need to reach out to get help with that so that you can start understanding more. Because you can listen to like my audio video here, or videos and other people's and mine, etc., and read all over the internet, but there are so many people that are framing this in ways that are not, really what's happening for the person with BPD. And even some people out there with BPD framing it in ways that aren't really helpful either, because they have a limited kind of awareness, some more so than others. So it's really important that you not just keep going around the same circles with videos or books or reading on the internet. You really need to take an action step, set an intention, take an action step, and seek help, because it's the only way for people to be able to get a sense of even self back and to begin to move through understanding what's really going on. Because the more intellectual understanding you have, that's great, but it's not going to help you to heal. It's not going to help you to get out of the pain and agony you're in, because real change and healing doesn't happen through the intellect. It has to be translated into the emotional landscape, processed there, and work through. And that's what I help clients do. And again, I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you. And in the meantime, no, the borderline X does not remember the good times. And so what are you going to do to help yourself today with what you're going through, what you might be ruminating on, and where you might be really stuck in a world of hurt?
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakups podcast with counselor and trauma recovery coach, Mahari, keeping it real to help you heal. You can find this podcast website with blogs and more information, and purchase some book sessions with Mahari at ajmahari.ca to help you with your healing and recovery journey from any relationship type with somebody with borderline personality. Please also check AJ's other website, bpdbreakups.com, for blog posts and more information. AJ's membership site can be found at ajmahari.co. Please keep tuning in, and if you're not subscribed to AJ Mahari's YouTube channel, please check it out at youtube.com/AJ Mahari.